Hi guys, it's me, Pretzel Kelly. Hi. I love movies, and I'm often asked what are some of my favorite movies. That's a very broad question, but I figured it was time to finally sit down and list out some of my favorite movies, but also what I think are some of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Alright, so as always, criteria, I know. But basically, if it's closer to one, it's probably closer to being my favorite film of all time, with number one being my favorite film of all time. I am also waiting necessarily kind of like how great the film is. And what I mean by that is it might be a great film, but if it's not like something I like to watch a lot, it might be lower on the list. And there might be some films that I watch a lot, but maybe you wouldn't consider great higher on the list. Things like that, right? Other thing is, if it's not on the list, that doesn't mean it's not a great film. Sometimes it's not, but there's going to be some notable exceptions that are not on the list just because I recognize they're great, but maybe they're not my favorite movies. Um, it's also going to be heavily leaning towards Japanese films because it's just the genre region I know most. Just That's just the way it is. So they're not all going to be that way. Trust me, there's not all just Japanese films on there. There's a lot of them, but there's not all of them. I'm hoping that maybe you'll see films that you love and we can talk about them. There'll be maybe some that you haven't seen before, and me talking about them will get you interested in them. And we can talk about that as well. You're always welcome to write a comment or talk to me when I stream. Also, okay, so I'm just going to get some notable exceptions out of the way of films that are not on the list uh, that I think are great movies, but they're not my favorites. For example, Citizen Kane. Great movie, not my favorite. It's good. It's really good. But, like, I don't sit down and want to watch Citizen Kane very often. Same with 2001 Space Odyssey, Truffaut's The 400 Blow, Louis Brunel's Obscure Object of Desire, and La Belle de Jour. What else is there? Shit. I mean, there's a ton of them. Um, no Hitchcock. I love Hitchcock films, but they're not like stuff I throw on a lot or want to watch a lot or think about. Like, no Hitchcock film comes to my mind when I think like my favorite films. That's pretty much the big ones. Um, yeah, 30. Let's get to number 30. Yes, it's the first one and it's already anime, I know. But here's the thing. This is Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, 1997, I believe. And it is a story about a J-pop idol, member of a group that's very popular and has a big devout fan base, and she decides to leave the group to pursue an acting career. And that leads to a lot of harassment, a stalker, um, murders, and a psychosis. So what's great about this film is there was like when Black Swan came out, there was a lot of craze about Black Swan, and all I thought about when I watched Black Swan was how much better this movie did the same story. Um, the characters are done really well. It's a 90s anime, but it's not animated like a prototypical 90s anime. Um, Everyone's very plain except for like the singers and the actresses. That's about it. Um, they're the only ones that look like beautiful in like the anime style. Um, but what's really interesting about this movie is it's tense. It's a thriller. It's effective, very effective, and it does a great job of really, as an audience member, uh, getting you to identify with someone that's a celebrity. That you know, she's she just is a normal girl more often than not, just living in her little one bedroom apartment. And, she's trying to make it in the entertainment industry in a new form. And that new form is her shedding her old identity and trying to be someone new. But can you easily do that and still retain your sense of self? And that's what the film is kind of about. It's an effective film. It's great. Satoshi Kon's just amazing. Paprika. Another reason why I don't like Inception is Paprika did it better. So it's one of those things that, like, if you like the concept of Black Swan but don't like Black Swan, you probably like this movie. If you like movies where you don't know what's real and what's not, you'll like this movie. If you're a fan of anime but want it to with like a psychological thriller or something more serious thrown into it, watch this film. It's one of only 3 animated films, I think, on my list. There's only 2 that I think are better than it, but it's great. I think it's amazing. Watch it. Do it. Number 28. No. Number 29.
我哋今次嘅任務係要拘捕所有參與販毒嘅人。今次行動嘅代號命名為獵豬行動，大家明白未？明白。
I don't know if anyone expected me to put a Jackie Chan movie on here, but I love this movie. What I love about this movie, and I only recently saw it for the first time. And it's not like it's my first Jackie Chan. I've seen like Drunken Master and obviously the stuff that's been released in the United States. But this is the first time I ever saw a Police Story. And obviously the big thing is the stunts and the action. I think that he's probably one of the best action stars ever, period. But the thing that surprised me the most about this film, it is so funny. It is really, more than anything, a comedy. Like, more throughout it, it's a comedy. And like, not like easy jokes and stuff like that. Some of them maybe are easy, but I think that it's because Jackie Chan is so quick-witted, because he has such great fast line delivery, and that he's able to physically move and do stuff in a way, because he's so talented physically. The camera, unlike a lot of like modern, action movies and stuff with actors that aren't necessarily action-oriented physically, they do a lot of quick cuts and things like that, or they do a lot of like slow-mo and fancy editing in order to like make it seem more actiony and impactful, or energetic at least. I mean, most of the action shots in this, if you saw it from the beginning, like the little clip, it's just still shots. It's just still shots. Like tripod mounted cameras, just focusing on Jackie Chan doing what he does best. And like I said, the most amazing thing to me about this movie is how funny it is. There's only one really kind of big action movie that I think is better than this, and that's only because I think it's more artistically done better. But as far as just like comedy action films that have come out, I think this is the absolute best one. And it's so amazing to be able to watch a film of Jackie Chan in his prime. And marvel that he lived this long based on everything that he's done. So I love this movie. It's one of those ones like one of the next ones coming up. I think it's the next one. That, like, as soon as I saw it, I knew it was going to be one of my favorites, and I love this movie. Now we're on to 28.
So you live alone?
Yes.
You think I'm pretty?
I like a gorgeous.
I don't know how many of you heard of this film, but if you've watched one of my previous films, I think it was on October Pretzel Picks. Yes. I talked about this film already, so I won't talk too much about it, but this is Jonathan Glazer's film Under the Skin, starring Scarlett Johansson, where she plays, this isn't a surprise, she plays an alien. And she is disguising herself as this woman in Edinburgh in order to seduce men for the purposes of harvesting them, basically. What this film does that's amazing, though, is it feels real, it feels down to earth, which as I mentioned previously, is ironic, being that she's an alien. It feels grounded. It tells a lot of story without exposition, pretty much no dialogue, other than the dialogue between Scarlett Johansson and these men. And there is a lot of ambiguity in it, and there's not a lot of answers, but it is a satisfying film for me. More than anything, it's just beautifully paced. It's slow, but that doesn't, just because it's slow doesn't mean that it's a bad pacing. The slow pacing fits it. It's meditative, I think. And more than anything, Jonathan Glazer's he's just brilliant with the camera, with direction. Scarlett Johansson's brilliant. This is not a typical kind of alien sci-fi movie. This is more of an art house film in a lot of ways. This is something that is kind of feels experimental. It's not surreal, but it feels kind of experimental a little bit. It's very interesting. It's very voyeuristic too. And I've watched it 2 or 3 times. I watched it like 2 months ago again for that video that I made, and I loved it as much the second time as I did the first time, if not more. I just noticed more little things, more beautiful shots, more amazing cinematography. If I'm not sounding as enthusiastic about it, it's because I feel like I was very passionate about it in the first video I made. So if you want, go watch that to hear a much longer discussion about it. But I recommend it, and I still love it.
Come to me. When was the last time you touched someone?
Number 27! That was weird.
What a comedy. What a tragedy. Incredible. I don't believe it. Who can believe it? What horrors have you heard? Tell us. Tell us. Tell us at once. Tell us about Wolfgang. Amadeus. Mozart. Mozart?
This is Amadeus. I love this movie. And part of it is because I watched it as a kid for the first time. When I was in Catholic school as part of music class, we watched this film, I'd say like 3rd or 2nd grade or something like that. obviously with nudity cut out. Um, but I remember being even then amazed by just this tale of jealousy and envy and like just like Salieri just like not being able to reconcile his own jealousy and envy, his sense of inadequacy, along with just amazement at being a witness to genius. Just unbridled, pure genius. And I will caveat all this by saying that I know that it's all fictional, all of that stuff, right? Mozart worked really hard and all this other stuff. And Salieri and Mozart probably didn't know each other. Got it. Don't care. Just talking about the film. And you really get like you alternate in this film between sympathizing with Salieri, sympathizing with Mozart, hating Salieri, but kind of knowing where he's coming from. Like you see as well like Mozart's genius, and kind of like we see that with a lot of celebrities. We do this with a lot of celebrities where we talk about like especially ones that have like mental breakdowns or addiction or things like that, or just whatnot, right? Financial trouble is a big one. We ask ourselves, or we say to ourselves, how can you let such talent go to waste and things like that, right? And this is all not even talking about the fact that it's directed by Milos Forman, one of the like prominent figures in Czech New Wave, who one of his other films, which is not on the list, but another one of my favorites, is The Fireman's Ball, is just a great movie. He also did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is also not on here, but is also a good movie. And it's a epic biography in a lot of ways. I forget how long it is. But it's just an amazing film. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and it doesn't feel it. It's just, the characters are great. It's already one of those ones that it, and I'm just kind of talking about, how much I love it. And there's a personal connection, like I said. This was probably the first great movie I ever watched, or that I have memory of seeing. And even to this day, I still think it's one of the best movies ever made. Hands down.
Amadeus, the man, the music, the magic, the madness, the murder, the mystery, the motion picture. Amadeus. Everything you've heard is true.
Number 26. Yeah.
I told him, OJ, you're breaking the laws of God. One day, everybody's gonna know everything that you've done, man.
If you're a black man in America, you're fighting our war.
Ooh, sinner man, where you gonna run to?
The reality of black America and white America, two totally separate worlds.
Ooh, sinner man,
For us, OJ was colorless.
This is the only documentary that appears on my list, and it's 9+ hours long, and every minute of it is just enthralling. And this is going to be one of those ones that is very America-centric, possibly. So if you don't know, I'll quickly explain who O.J. Simpson is. I didn't think I would have to do this, but I guess I should. O.J. Simpson was he still is, black American who, during a time was basically the golden child of America, not just in football. He was a brilliant football player, not soccer, American football, in college, and then in the NFL. He went on to be in movies like Naked Gun and Towering Inferno, commercials. He was like, they talk about it in the film where he was kind of like white America's black figure in a lot of ways. And then there was the murder trial where he was arrested for murdering Nicole Simpson, and her friend. And this film does a great job. So, like, I mean, I'll be 100% honest. I was fairly young when the trial happened and everything, and I wasn't fully aware of it, and I didn't really have the full context of O.J. Simpson and the trial and whatnot. I remember the trial being long, and I remember a lot of people being upset that he was found not guilty. And there's a lot of historical context that as a kid I didn't understand it, I didn't grasp. And maybe people that are only vaguely aware of O.J. Simpson and the trial kind of grasp as well. This documentary covers everything. It is basically a biography of O.J. Simpson from, I think as young as like childhood to up to when this was made present day. This was before he was released recently for kidnapping charges. And it adds so much context to what happened. And it's, for lack of a better term, exciting in some parts. It's devastating in many others. It's, it's the best documentary I have seen. And I know that there's some big ones that I haven't seen, but this is the best one I've seen. I couldn't stop watching it as soon as I started watching it. There's stuff in here that has never been released before, and stuff that maybe shouldn't have been released, but adds to the context. For example, the big thing that was not released up until this film came out was actual crime scene photos. So the actual photos of Nicole Brown Simpson's corpse, and just like how gruesome of a murder it really was. Like, words can describe it, but like seeing it and just wondering what kind of person could do this. And if you assume that O.J. Simpson did it, then the fact that just for like 3 hours before we even get to that, 3 or 4 hours before we get to that, all we're doing is talking about how he was kind of a golden child and, this beloved person, and trying to wrap your head around like that person did this. It's a brilliant biographical documentary. It's a brilliant crime documentary. I don't know. It's my, I don't want to say favorite because that sounds really, it sounds really morbid. It's the best documentary I have seen. And if you ever are even curious about and want context for the O.J. Simpson kind of period in America, it's definitely worth watching. It pretty much answers any questions you have about it. It's just brilliant. I don't know if a better documentary will ever be made after this, honestly.
None of the people that we associated with looked at him as a black man.
A civil rights leader in Los Angeles has said if you are going to be a Negro in a big city, then Los Angeles is the best place to be.
I can somebody say I can kill this woman.
Ooh, cinnamon, where you gonna run to?
Really? O.J. Simpson as a civil rights victim? It was disgusting. It was appalling.